Coming up in a few minutes, we're going to be talking to Sheriff Mack, in fact, here in just one moment. But this whole Fast and Furious case, the corporate mainstream media is trying to get us to focus on little side issues, not the drugs being shipped in by the ATF, that's on record, not the guns being shipped all over the country to drug gangs to knock out their competition, that's being ignored. You know, I've interviewed Darrell Issa, I know Darrell Issa. I hope that he's the real deal on this, but you know, political parties like to protect each other. And the fact that they're busy talking about, oh, we're assigning new prosecutors because the Attorney General can't be trusted to go after people that they set up in Fast and Furious, that's all a distraction. That's all a diversion. This is really all about blaming the Second Amendment for the carnage in Mexico, which the White House is still going ahead with, even though they got caught launching this false flag against the Second Amendment. With more on this incredible case that could bring down Obama and his organized crime syndicate is veteran peace officer Sheriff Richard Mack. You know, he, back in the mid-1990s, took his Supreme Court case against the Brady Act, violating our Second Amendment, all the way to the Supreme Court and won. And it's a landmark case pointing out the true power of the 10th Amendment and the states. But I wanted to talk to him about Fast and Furious and some of the new developments there, and the fact that the Attorney General has been caught perjuring himself repeatedly, and where he thinks this is going. But first, we're going to cover a couple of other big police state issues. Sheriff, great to have you here with us.
Hey, thanks a lot, Alex. It's always good to be with you.
Do you ever feel like that you're living in some weird alternate dimension? Because arresting Amish for selling, you know, tomatoes and milk, kids being arrested for lemonade stands, Gibson Guitar told to leave the country, TSA going in the pants of people now, folks being charged and facing life in prison for videotaping and taping police in public. I mean, is our government trying to go beyond North Korea? Do they think they're God?
Yeah, it's basically come to that. And you failed to mention the other one. In Florida, the police are telling the news media they can no longer have scanners. So this all fits into the picture that you're drawing for your audience right now, that it's so out of control. It's everything to protect the government, and yet nothing to protect the Bill of Rights or the people. And this should be very alarming to everyone in America, not just Alex Jones listeners, but everyone in America should be getting on board, listening to your information, because this is now affecting the mainstream of America.
Sheriff, what do you think? I mean, you warned about this 15, 20 years ago. It's now all come true. I hope the next chapter doesn't come true. But Obama and FEMA are now calling it the federal family, I guess like La Cosa Nostra. And they're saying we've got to circle the wagons against the people. So they're almost taking that distorted thin blue line and now making it the federal family line.
Right. And there's a book that even brings that out called The Sovereign Individual, that was written by a couple of mainstreamers out of New York. It was actually published by Simon & Schuster. And it makes that very claim that you have, that the only thing closest to the Cosa Nostra or the mafia in America is our own federal government. And they even cite specifically the IRS. But it's gone. The IRS is not any longer the only one that gets to play the Gestapo. It's all of them now. And yes, it is Eric Holder. And it's amazing that Eric Holder would be now responsible to call for his own arrest.
It's incredible. Now, I want to get into Fast and Furious and the fact that it's a smokescreen, Issa, all of it. They're talking about, oh, they screwed up. It's now admitted that into states all over the country they were shipping guns. They weren't just shipping them into Honduras and Mexico, but we're going to get to that in a minute and why you think they did it and where you think it's going. But what about Mr. Allison facing life in prison for videotaping and audio taping police in public, and 12 states coming out and officially saying we're going to arrest you, including news media, if you tape us? I mean, there's no perception of privacy. How do the police videotape us?
The only time that we could not videotape a police officer is if he was in his own home. If he was off duty and in his own home. Every time that you're outside of your home, if you're in the public's eye, it doesn't matter if you're a cop, it doesn't matter if you're a barber on Main Street. If you're in public, I can videotape you. I can photograph you. I was just in El Salvador, a third world country, 2 weeks ago. My son is videotaping in this marketplace, and a police officer came up to him and told him he could no longer take any pictures in this public setting. Has the United States caught up to El Salvador, a third world country that doesn't have a constitution, that does not have a Bill of Rights? Where are we at in this country, Alex? I'm sorry. Any cop who thinks he cannot be photographed or videotaped while he's in uniform doing his supposed job, then he has turned in to the real enemy. Any chief of police who thinks that's okay in America should be fired and charged criminally for violating his oath of office to uphold and defend the Constitution.
Well, Sheriff Mack, how did it get to this where they openly come out, and now in 12 states, it was just 9 a few months ago, and are officially saying, we're coming after you? And they're even getting convictions. Most of them get thrown out because people know their rights, but poor people and folks, they're actually getting juries to send people to prison, and now they say, we want life in prison. I mean, even in North Korea, I don't think you get life in prison for videotaping. I mean, are they drinking or snorting some type of hallucinogen?
I think, though, you have to really look very closely at the entire Obama picture. This has been happening. We knew what he was when we picked him up.
No, he said in Missouri, it was on the news, if you criticized him, the police said we're going to arrest you during the campaign.
Yeah. Well, again, the American people, if indeed they did this, but it looks like it. I mean, he still gets flocks of people following after him, even now that he's been so destructive to America, so destructive to freedom, so destructive to our foundational documents and our foundational principles. He's still getting people to flock behind him like he's some sort of rock star. And I find that the scariest thing of all. It's okay that we'll have stupid politicians, but to create an entire country that has been so dumbed down, and you've called this also through the educational system and through the political system, we have all followed along way too long, and it's absolutely astonishing.
That's right.
That we allow this to occur in this country. And it's no longer the right-wing whack jobs like they call you and me all the time. Now there's people that are really waking up in the middle of the road in this country. I just hope it's not too late, and I'm really worried about our country. Please, it can't be too late.
Well, let me ask you this, because I mean, I have a little bit of power in my own life. In fact, quite a lot. You have a lot of power. People all over the country listen to you, and with that, I feel a great responsibility to try to really get things right and to be fair about things. And I know as a peace officer and then as a sheriff, you know, you've talked about it. It's a serious honor, a duty to exercise this power in service. How do police get in the mindset, and prosecutors and state prosecutors, to sit around and straight face go, we'll put a guy with no criminal record, a family man, because he stood up to us and videotaped us, we're going to put him in jail for life. Let's go ahead and do this. I mean, that is so alien to freedom. In fact, the average criminal isn't that nasty. This is a vile wickedness that just is, it's hard for me to believe that in 12 states they are proud of it and go on TV. It's so mind-blowing. How could the ATF ship tens of thousands of guns into Indiana, we now learn, and in Florida, and armed gangs, and let Sinaloa group, it's now in mainstream news, ship the cocaine in by the tons and run murder for hire? Well, I guess they're just criminals. I mean, at the end of the day, they don't even think they're cops anymore. I mean, is that it? These are just outright Nazi criminals or Soviet jackboots?
It's simply this. They're officers of the state. They are state police officers. They are part of the police state in America. And as you said, I've been warning against that for 20 years. Even in my first book that I wrote in 1994, the last chapter is about that very issue, the police state. And we've gone now far beyond that, but we have sheriffs and chiefs of police who are now all being trained by the federal government. And the SPLC is making sure that the federal government and all these other police agencies are trained to be like this, and that they should be afraid of anybody who believes in the Constitution.
Well, that's my question, because you travel all over the country and speak to huge crowds of people, a lot of them, police and others. On average, are they criminals who know what they're doing, or are they delusional that, well, this guy, Mr. Allison, isn't a human, we'll put him in jail for life to send a message because he videotaped us in public? I mean, how do they not think of him as a human? I mean, are they just on mentally ill power trips?
It all comes down to what I've said in my book also, is Nuremberg. This is just the Nuremberg mentality. It's the SWAT team mentality that happened in Arizona and all across this country, that the Department of Education now can call out a SWAT team to collect fees. Not because anybody's committed a crime, but on a civil matter of just a mere collection. This is happening everywhere, Alex.
Well, as you said, it came out that was illegal, where they are now sending Department of Education with a local SWAT team for bills, and they bust in without warrants. It's like launch wars without Congress, gun laws without laws, super Congress to create bills now. I mean, look, it's happened. The Republic has fallen. We can always restore it. But do you agree with me that for all intents and purposes, the executive has been turned into a dictatorship? I'm not saying Obama won't leave, but the office itself, and we need to just go ahead and admit the goose is cooked. And I think the establishment knows that we are waking up. And so they're just going, hey, the velvet gloves off. You're right. We're narcotics trafficking murderers, and this is the way it is. And if you videotape us or stand up to us, we're going to put you in prison.